Welcome to the Scaling Japan podcast, a podcast about how to grow your business from $100,000 and beyond in the land of the rising sun.
Welcome to the Scaling Japan podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Batino, and on today's episode, we have Beau Becker. Beau Becker is the CEO of Reiwa Pharmaceuticals, headquartered in Shibuya, Tokyo. And they are the first company to produce anti-flush products for the Japanese market. Their flagship product, Akan, is an anti-flush drink gaining popularity in Japan. And he has experience incorporating startups and helping others incorporate their startups in Japan as well. He has also written 2 very popular articles on creating a bank account and incorporating a company. And today, we'll talk about his many experiences opening a bank account for startups in Japan. It's good to have you for the second time, Beau, and please let them know about you.
Before we start, here's a quick introduction to myself, your host. I am the CEO of LaunchLab. We support setting up a company and back office in Japan. We also provide affordable advisory on raising capital, IPO, and other finance topics. I also run Scaling Your Company that provides courses and sales advisory and digital marketing agency services for the Japan market. If you need help, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, awesome to be here, Tyson. Let me say that this topic, business banking in Japan, is something I've just been dying to talk about. It's I feel like I've got so much info in my mind from opening the accounts for my own company, helping other entrepreneurs get their bank accounts started, and I keep getting questions from entrepreneurs. I keep seeing people lost trying to open their bank accounts in Japan because it can be difficult. And it's been such a desire of mine since I wrote that first article about 2 years ago to take the chance and put all that information into one podcast. And so, yeah, what I'm really hoping to come up with today is just, one solid hour that if you listen to this, you're going to know everything about getting a bank account, a loan, doing international transfers, all of this stuff that it doesn't sound that exciting, but as an entrepreneur, it'll be key to your business in Japan. And I just want that after this hour, you're going to know everything you need to know about getting that bank account started.
Yeah, and your bank account went viral on LinkedIn Japan.
Yeah, the article. Yeah. So
And
about
it's
2
really
years
good.
ago, let me just introduce how I somehow became the banking expert for entrepreneurs in Japan. And it's really something I never expected because even though I am quite financially literate, I'm more of a manufacturing guy and a sales guy, an entrepreneur guy myself. But when I started my company in late 2019, there was basically zero resources helping non-Japanese citizen entrepreneurs know which banks to go to, how to do the applications, what was the good strategy for setting up financial these financial methods for your company. And so I had to do it all myself. And through the process of going through to, somewhere of 15 to 20 financial institutions, begging for a bank account just to get the startup started, I accumulated so much information. And as I said, I just had to get it down in an article. It took me about a month to write the whole thing. And when I first released that article, and it really was a smash hit, it did way better than expected. And I started getting daily inquiries, daily questions from entrepreneurs struggling in Japan. And so through that, I started learning more and more, seeing more situations, and then actually started offering a small side business just to help entrepreneurs who really didn't know what they were doing fill out the applications, make an easy strategy. And so through the last 2 years of really getting into the weeds with entrepreneurs, different industries, somehow I've become the banking expert, and for startups at least. And the goal is to just share that with as many people as possible.
If you, for listeners, if you want to know, you can just type in corporate banking in Japan, Bo, and you see Beau Becker's name. uh, and it's on the article is on LinkedIn. And I think that the thing that
Yeah.
really stands out is I think you're the only person who's gone to like there's like 15 to 20 different banks
The
and like
depth.
yeah,
Yeah.
the depth of
Well,
it.
it's an in-depth article, and it actually breaks down basically every bank individually, giving each one a ranking. I would really suggest that even before you listen to this podcast, just go and skim through it at least, to get an idea of how the banks are situated, what the different categories are. But it's really a testament to how little information there was available, that an article I wrote on LinkedIn could become the number one business banking guide. All right. So yeah,
It's
I just hope
yeah,
that it's helped people.
because most articles have generally the same information, and yours
Mhm.
is the only one that actually went into like what visa do you need for what bank account. And I think
Sure.
also just kind of a recap of the online banking as well. So yeah, let's dive in it. And I guess first we can probably start off with the fast track banking strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, let's just get into it. So, the first thing I think to understand when you're talking about opening a bank account in Japan is just what does the landscape look like? All right, because it's not necessarily the same as in whatever country you're coming from. And the way it's going to be laid out in Japan is at the very top of the food chain, there's a small group of about 5 megabanks, right? And these are enormous corporations that do business in so many different areas. And all of those businesses are centered around their banks, right? So these are the classics like Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, right? And the Japan Post Bank, these giant ones. Then below that, you've got the local banks, which are still enormous banks and corporations, but they're usually going to have between, let's say, 50 and 200 locations, and they're going to vary uh, depending on which geographic location in Japan you are.
Gotcha. So that would be an example, like maybe Shizuoka Bank, or
Sure,
maybe
Shizuoka Bank is
Tokyo
great.
Star or
Tokyo
Yokohama
Star
Bank.
Break. Yeah, to Yokohama is one of the bigger ones, in fact. So yeah, exactly. Then below that, I guess the next one is the online banks, right? And so these are going to be some of your best options because they really don't have many physical locations, so they're maybe better set up to help startup companies. But there's maybe 4 or 5 of those right now, which are kind of the next one. Then the fourth category is credit unions, which are comparatively large as local banks. So you've got every city is going to have their own credit unions. They're very geographically distributed. So wherever you are, you're going to have to research your local credit unions, but they are very helpful, especially for small businesses. And then the final category is credit associations, which are quite similar to credit unions in how they operate, but even a bit smaller. And generally speaking, any non citizen entrepreneur or any startup company is not going to be dealing with credit associations. So I think we won't even touch on them much today. But those are really the 5 main categories, and that's the first thing you should understand when you're approaching your startup banking in Japan. So yeah, then let's take that knowledge and go right into the fast track banking strategy, right? So really, this is just 4 easy steps that right when you incorporate your company, if you just follow these steps, this is going to be the easiest way to get all of your banking issues sorted. And the general strategy is that you want one net bank. And the reason to have one net bank is that they have the lowest fees for payments, for deposits, whatever it is. They're going to have the lowest fees and the most flexibility. So this is really what you want for maybe your main checking account. And then the second part of the strategy is to have a mega bank account. And the reason this is really necessary, or at least you want it, is that in the Japanese society, your company is going to be somewhat judged on whether you have a mega bank account or not. And it often there's many services such as paying your social insurance or signing up for employee insurance, where they will not even, or they will refuse to take deposits from a net bank account. And so you really are going to have a mega bank account for certain deposits and payments. And so that's really the basic strategy, is that as soon as possible, you want to get one net bank account and one mega bank account.
And I'll
So,
add one
yeah,
quick point.
please.
For the net bank account, it's if you have only one and like you list it on your website, sometimes people ask the question like, is this a real company?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've heard that as well. I mean, my company has personally had no problems. We've used SBI Net Bank as our main one since incorporation. We've never really run into any problems, but I've definitely heard of that, where if you only have one net bank account, there can definitely be some issues when signing up for services or applying for loans or something like that. Um,
Sorry, friend. Please take it away.
Yeah, sure. So, with that being said, step one of the fast track banking strategy is, as soon as you get your company incorporated, you've got that registration paper and you've got your stamps ready. The next thing to do is just go straight to SBI NetBank's website and apply for an application paper. And something to note here is that all of these net banks, or whatever bank it is, a lot of them have online applications that are quite good, actually. But the unfortunate news is that those online applications are never allowed to be used by non-citizens. So even if you're a permanent resident of Japan, if you're a non-citizen, there's no way you're going to be able to use the online line application. So just forget about it. You go to their website, you find the section where it says paper application by mail. I know it stinks, but that's what you have to do. Don't even waste your time. Just get the application by mail, fill out as much as possible. They'll send it to you. You sign it, do a little stamp if it's necessary, and then send it back to SBI NetBank. The whole process should take you 2 weeks, and I very rarely hear of people getting rejected from SBI NetBank. Um, a big update for 2024 out of the new up and coming bank is PayPay Bank. And so, even though when I wrote this article, GMO Aozora NetBank was ranked as the second choice, PayPay Bank has now leapfrogged them. And it really, if you have any troubles with SBI NetBank, the next step is going to be applying for a PayPay Bank account. So just go on their website. You still have to do the paper application, which takes a couple extra days, but just do it, fill it out. And PayPay Bank does not even use a Hanko stamp for their application. They've completely eliminated it. So they only accept signatures. So they're one of the easiest.
Okay, and for the paper application, are there any of them you could do in English?
No. So yeah, that's a good point. There's one thing about doing banking in Japan is that there's even if a bank is able to give you some type of service in English, um, all applications are always going to be in Japanese. It's unfortunately it's the case. And the only one I've ever heard of which has an English application, and it's basically English and Japanese together, is the Shinsei Bank, right? Which is really the classic bank that offers English service in Japan. That raises another question, which is, if you really cannot fill out the application in Japanese, or that's a struggle, what do you do? And unfortunately, the answer is you have to find someone to fill it out for you, right? There's not going to be the idea that the bank is going to help you fill it in, or you're going to be able to wing it is not really possible, because it's all in Japanese. There's going these applications have questions about your financial status, whether or not you're some kind of politically connected person. They're going to ask about your taxes in your home country, blah blah blah, and answering any of those questions wrong can totally set the application on the wrong track. And I've seen it quite a few times where somebody tried to fill out the application without really understanding the questions. uh, the application went totally down the wrong track, and then they contacted me to just restart it from the beginning, and completely redo the application. So if you really cannot fill it out in Japanese, I would suggest find a Japanese friend to fill it out for you, because they're not difficult to fill out, but you do have to just get the questions right. And if you can't do that, contact someone like myself or a business person in Japan who can, do it for you for a small charge.
Hello, listeners. I'm excited to announce my live cohort course to help you increase your sales in Japan. Many foreigners struggle to turn first meetings into second meetings because they lack a sales pamphlet that follows the standard format in Japan. Even if you have a good first meeting, your internal contact will hand over your current sales pamphlet to the decision maker, and they'll take one look and say they don't get Japan. My live 4-session cohort course will teach you how to make a sales pamphlet in English using the standard format in Japan. You will receive a sales pamphlet template, more than 10 examples from Japanese companies, and a lot of feedback, so you can end the course with a sales pamphlet that gets more meetings and therefore more sales. Getting one extra deal will more than pay off the course, so joining is a no-brainer. You can find more details of the course at scalingyourcompany.com/sales pamphlet. And we'll have a link in the show notes. Copy that.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, the truth is, if you're going to be banking in Japan, you almost have to do it in Japanese.
Sweet. So I think that's probably one question on everyone's mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so stepping back to the fast track banking strategy. So, step one was get that net bank account as soon as possible, because they're the fastest processing, they're the least likely to reject you. Apply for the net banks as soon as possible. Step two is to get the Megabank account. And basically, the way to approach this is that the first thing you need to determine is where is the geographically closest Megabank branch to our office. And each Megabank has their branches set out, laid out along the city, and each branch, it has a very specific area which it serves. So if your company's registration is not within the specific area that branch serves, you're just going to waste your time. And so the first thing to do would be to call, find out which branch you think is closest to you, give them a quick call and just say, I'm running this company. Here's our address. Are we in your designated area? And you'll get a yes or no answer, or they'll tell you, no, this is the branch which can serve you. So please contact them. Right. And so once you find out which branch is the right one for your company, you then go onto the website of the Megabank, and they've got whichever bank it is, they've got a little section within the business customers section where you can set up a business appointment. They all have it, and what this does is it kind of sets the meeting off to the right tone. Because if you just show up and you demand to talk to a manager and you have your business documents in hand, they're going to be flustered, right? They're not going to know who you are. They're not going to have done any preparation. I think the best way to approach it is set up that meeting, let the manager at least look at your company's website before you show up, and then he or she will be on a much better, at least much more prepared when you show up. And so set that time. The things you need to bring are your company's registration, the tohon, um, which you get from the Bureau of Legal Affairs. You need to have your company stamps with you and your personal ID. At least those are the minimum documents which
And
you
the
should have.
tohon is typically the green document.
Always green. Yeah. It's going to be a green document that shows your company number, address, who the board of directors are, how many shares are issued, whatever, depending on what type of company it is. But that's, yeah, you must have that company registration document when you go in. And so then the key here is you set that appointment beforehand so that when you show up to the bank, you say, "Hello, I'm from this company and I have an appointment at this time," and they're going to be ready. The manager is going to have a desk waiting with to talk to you. And basically your goal is to demand to fill out an application on the day of. Don't let because the manager, these big Japanese banks, they've got so many customers. Really the last thing they need is another company to worry about. So they're not, unfortunately, they're not really incentivized to take your business, and they would usually lean on the side of maybe refusing companies rather than just taking everyone. And so your goal is to just be insistent, and no matter what the manager says, you just keep saying, "Oh, sorry, no, I've already decided. I want to fill out an application today. Please give me the application form." They might say, "Oh, well, we really, let's just think. Maybe you should reconsider, or maybe this bank would be better." Just don't really acknowledge what they're saying. Just keep insisting on filling out an application. Seriously, this is the way to do it. And it's just an application. It's possible that they can refuse it after it's filled, but your goal is seriously to demand to fill out the application form in its entirety. And it's not that long. Usually the application form looks like a one-page front and back. It's going to ask you who your shareholders are, if there's any politically people of political interest in your company, what your main business is, these types of things. But insist on filling out that application. And then when my company did it, we were able to get the bank account opened the day of. We didn't have to wait. I insisted on filling out the form, and we were able to get the bank booklet and documents on that day. And so that's really your goal, is insist on filling out the application no matter what they say.
Oh, you're able to get it on this.
Yeah. And
Oh,
so and other companies can do it too. So you insist on filling it out, and depending on which bank it is, they'll be, either aggressive or not on insisting you don't apply. But yeah, do your best and just keep insisting that no, you've done the research. This is the bank you want to use, and I want to fill out the application right now. And yeah, I mean, it's really difficult for them to say no for you filling out the application. And then once you filled it out, you've got a chance. And so then, concerning which mega banks you should go to, it does depend on your visa status, but far and above, the mega bank which has demonstrated itself to be the most friendly to startups and small business is Sumitomo SMBC. So I would definitely suggest you go to them first. When I did it, I had an employment visa. I didn't have the business manager visa yet, but they still opened the account for us. even though I didn't have the business manager visa. And they gave us a free 8,000 yen Square credit card reader, which was automatically connected to our SMBC account. So it was actually really cool, and everyone there was very helpful. I've really enjoyed using SMBC, so they're definitely your first choice. And then the second choice, if it doesn't work out with SMBC, would be to go to Mitsubishi. And the only caveat there is that you must have a business manager visa to do business banking at Mitsubishi.
Gotcha. And editor, for the trailer for this episode, please use that Beau's talk on being insistent on
Yeah,
sending
do
the
it.
application. That should definitely be the trailer for this episode.
Don't
And
let them tell you no. Just they because they will try to tell you no. They will try to say, oh, you don't, are you sure you thought about this? Or, oh, there's going to be these fees, there's going to be this, and you don't let them do that. You just say, no, I'm going to fill out the application. Please give me the application. Can't wait till tomorrow. Has to be today. Let's do it. Right? That's the way. Yeah, really.
And I want to mention one other thing. So Beau mentioned
Please.
that one of the documents you need is the tohon, the toki tohon, the green document typically.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for those who have just incorporated, you'll receive something that's also green, but that one is called the Certificate of All Historical or All History Items and the
Yeah.
Certificate of Registered Matters, right?
Yeah. I think
Oh, no,
that's
sorry.
the
Sorry,
same one.
editor.
Yeah.
Editor, let me say it one more time.
Yeah.
So the document, after you incorporate, you'll receive a document that's also green, which is called the Lileki Jiko Zenbu Shomesho, and
Yeah.
translated to the Certificate of All Historical Items, all history items, that can also be used for your bank account. And it's
Yeah. Oh,
synonymous with the
absolutely.
Toki
That
Tohon.
is the Tohon. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I
No,
just want to mention those 2
no,
points.
exactly. You're absolutely right. That's the full name of the Tohon. So yeah, make sure you have that when you go to the bank, or you've got no shot. You must have the full approved company registration.
Cool. And I'll let you take it on to the next step.
Yeah, so okay, the fast track banking strategy. First thing you did was get your net bank account. It took 2 weeks. While you were waiting, you went to the Megabank, you set up an appointment, you insisted to fill out the application. Okay, now you've got your Megabank account coming. Now, the next major issue you're going to run into is any type of international transfers. And what you'll notice is that all Japanese banks, including online banks, including mega banks, including whatever bank you can imagine, are all very specialized for domestic business only. And I think this is a really unfortunate point about banking in Japan, but it's really the truth. Any type of international transactions through Japanese banks are going to be a huge headache. You're going to have to open special accounts. You're going to have to use USB verification. It's something to be avoided entirely. And fortunately, there is one third party service that can really solve this entire issue for you. And it's called Wise, right? Some of you may have used this for personal transfers, personal payments, and such, but they actually run a very robust business solution for Japanese companies. And really, the third step of the fast track banking strategy is to set up a Wise business account. And that's going to be what you use for any type of international payments in and out of Japan. And I'll say it took me about 2 weeks to do the setup. They will check your address. It takes about 2 weeks. But at this point, as a Japanese company, we've been able to open a US, Australian, and Belgian euro bank account that we can use for any type of international transactions, all with our Japanese corporate name on it. So it's a wonderful service. This is really the third step of the fast track banking strategy.
And I will second Wise. Bo, I think we'll put in. Not sure if you have an affiliate link for Wise, but we'll put
No,
yours in the show note. But
I,
I'm
I
a
should
huge
I should get one. I'm their
yeah.
biggest
You should
supporter, but
let's say just give us the link and we'll take care of that. But I'm
yeah.
also a huge fan of Wise. I've saved like hundreds and thousands of yen on wire transfer fees
No, really, and the thing it's not even about saving the money. It's
and the
about
speed too.
it, yeah,
It's
it's like if you try to make an international payment using a Japanese bank, it's literally going to take you 2 weeks to do a single payment. I mean, it's insanity. And even banks like SBI Net Bank and PayPay Bank, they actually don't even offer international payments at all. So there's not even an option to do it. So really, the save yourself the headache. And for any type of international um, payments or any transfer, anything, use Wise. So, okay, so that's the step 3 of the fast track banking strategy, and then step 4, last major step, is your credit cards, right? So you're gonna have when you open your net bank, you're going to receive a debit card, but you're definitely going to want a credit card for your general purchases and whatever it is for your company. And even my company has one from our net bank and from SMBC, but really the best option for corporate credit cards in Japan is to get American Express. They have a whole line of business specific cards with not they one of them has a very low fee, and they're really used to working with non-Japanese founders. They'll be even if you don't have it, they'll be sending advertisements to your office every other month, and it's the easiest way to get an ETC card for when you need to drive, for personal or business purposes in Japan. So I would really suggest skipping any type of headache that the bank credit cards will give you and just set up an American Express corporate card. It's I've never heard of a serious business getting rejected, and you'll have everything ready within a week or two.
cheers for that.
So yeah, then that's the fast back track banking strategy. If you really follow this, the whole thing should take you maybe a month total, and then your mega bank account is really going to be your company's main savings account. The net bank will be your main checking account, and then Wise allows you to do any other types of international transfers. So yeah, this is really the best way to do it. uh, Really, there's almost nothing else to say. Just follow the fast track banking strategy. Excellent.
So next, I think we can dive into maybe a little bit about the required residence status.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump right into it. So, yeah, one of the most unfortunate things about doing business in Japan, anyone who's tried to do it has run into this, is that the Japanese Immigration Bureau and the government, as an island nation, it is very insular, and the whole system is set up to keep any businesses that are not centered in Japan kind of out of the market. And unfortunately, this does put any non-citizen entrepreneurs at a disadvantage, because many banks, especially smaller ones, are insistent and have very serious requirements. It's sometimes I don't think I've ever heard of a bank that does citizens only, but a lot of banks require permanent residence for any non-citizens trying to do open an account with them. And almost all of the local bank of the local banks, the credit unions, credit associations, almost all of them are going to require permanent residence. So if you don't have that, you can just completely forget about those banks. Don't even waste your time. Um, the next tier um, of required residence status is to have the business manager or highly skilled professional, which is another type of business manager visa. But most people will probably have the business manager visa, which is already quite difficult to get. And if you have that, it's going to open a lot of options. There's a few credit unions that will accept your business. There's most mega banks will accept anyone with a business manager visa. And you're going to have an easier time of opening a net bank or in any type of bank account. And then the third tier is someone with a mid or long-term employment visa. And so this is going to be, I forget the exact name of the visa, something like specialty in engineering or human services
Gotcha.
or
International or humanities and
humanities.
international
Yeah.
services.
Yeah, this is usually what it looks like, or anyone with an employment visa of really any type will be eligible to open a business bank account in many cases. But your selection of which banks is very limited, and that's we do go over that in the guide. So, but something to note is that anyone with a student visa, with usually with a startup visa, these types of things, you're not going to be able to open a bank account, and really for personal or business purposes. And so it's really a bummer, and a lot of people come up against this. So it's better you understand this as soon as possible. Is that if you do not have a mid or long term residence visa in Japan, there's no chance you're going to be able to open a personal or business bank account. So, yeah, before you even get in line at the bank, your first goal is to get your residence figured out.
Sounds good. And if you're on a student or student visa, you are able to get a personal account, but definitely not a
Yeah, yeah.
business one.
No, you may be able to get a personal account depending on how long it is, but yeah, for yeah,
Yeah,
they will not.
6 month student visa
Yeah, can be
is a bit
difficult.
tough, but 1 year you should
Sure.
probably have
But
not too much challenge.
probably, yeah. But even if you have your company incorporated, it's a totally Japanese company with an office, the banks are not going to be looking at the company. They're going to be looking at the residence status of the representative director of the company, and they're going to determine your company's eligibility based on your personal residence status. And it's sad that it works that way, but that's just how it works in Japan. So your first step is to uh, establish your residence in Japan, and then you can come back to this fast track banking guide.
Cool, excellent. And I have one question.
Please.
It's so if someone is on an employment visa, technically, let's say running a business would go against their visa, let's say, what they're allowed to technically do.
So I'm not sure that's the case. I believe that you are allowed to run a business, but you're not allowed to be compensated by that business. Is how it works. So if you're living in Japan on a normal employment visa, you are absolutely allowed to incorporate a company. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can open the bank accounts, you can run the company, but if your residence status is listed as employment, you are not allowed to be compensated by your own company, because that compensation is not employment compensation. It's a different category called directors remuneration. So yeah, this is the legal determination that, as far as I understand.
In the sorry, I had to ask because you're not going to find this information online.
No, you cannot. And let me clarify that I started Reiwa Pharmaceuticals while on an employment visa from my previous employer. I was able to open the bank accounts while still on the employment visa. And then once I had all of that set up, I was able to use those bank accounts and office to apply for the business manager visa. All right. So the next topic to touch on is the uh, English service banks in Japan. And unfortunately, this is going to be a short topic, but maybe important for some. And my suggestion would definitely be to commit to doing your business banking in Japanese. If at all possible, because that's what the banks want. And I've even heard of friends or businesses who have brought a translator with them to the bank and been refused because the bank doesn't want to deal with a translator. Right. So really, if it's possible, I would commit to doing everything in Japanese. However, I know that's not an option for a lot of people, and it really shouldn't be a requirement. But the only full service bank in Japan that actually offers full banking service in English is Shinsei Bank. And the big news for 2024, and I believe it was late 2023 last year, that actually Shinsei Bank merged with SBI Bank. And so the corporation just got bigger, but they have kept the English service, and they really are the only full English service bank in Japan. So if you need English banking service, then your first stop is going to be Shinsei Bank. And similar to the Megabanks, you can go on their website and book a appointment with a manager who will speak English. That's really what Shinsei is about. All of their managers are required to speak English. Go there and do your best. Bring the pitch deck, bring the business plan, and do your best to convince them that your business is worth their time and that you would like an account with them. It's possible. So give it a try.
And next, we'd like to dive into stamps. Good old Hanko, Inkan, and Jitsuin.
Good old Hankos. So yeah, let's get right into it. So what kind of stamps are you going to need? And so maybe we should even just go back to the very basics. What do we even mean when we're saying stamps, right? Because it's not like a sticker or some kind of little stamp that you might associate with the word stamp
And,
in the US. What we're
and guess,
talking about is like actually a piece of wood which has a carving on one end, which is custom made for your company and serves as your method to sign for the company is really what it is. And
and
so,
guess, I have to
yeah,
make one clarification. We
please.
mean stamps, not
Yes.
stamp.
Yeah, there's stamps. And so, yeah, so whenever you incorporate a company in Japan, uh, part of the incorporation documents includes registering a stamp. So if you have a corporation, if you're incorporated, you definitely already have at least one stamp. But before incorporating a company, you must go to the stamp shop and order a set of stamps. And I would suggest getting 3 stamps. Even though you only need 2 for the banking itself, I would definitely suggest getting 3, which is the representative director's stamp, the Jitsuin, the bank stamp, which specifically says bank stamp on it, and then the company stamp, which is used for receipts and documents. So you definitely want to get all 3. And every time you go to the bank, you're going to want to have the Jitsuin, the representative director's stamp, and the bank stamp. And I've even had it where I remember one time we changed our company's address. I went to the bank to change the address, filled out all the papers, and at the end they said, all right, now you have to stamp with the bank stamp, which I had not brought that day and basically wasted an hour and a half. So really anything you do at the banks is going to require these 2 stamps. And I would also suggest having your personal stamp on hand when you go there. Since it's business matters, it's unlikely you'll need to use your personal stamp, but I've seen it before, and I would suggest you have that on you.
And
So,
then I think next, maybe a little bit about maybe the account
account,
booklet,
yeah, this the
if you
tsucho.
receive it.
Yeah, well, I think this is an important topic for any new entrepreneurs in Japan, and it's pretty shocking when you first open a bank account in Japan and they hand you this little book, and you think, "Holy cow!" I mean, am I am I back in the 1950s or something? And they've got these ATMs that actually suck the whole book in and then print each line of transaction and then shoot it back out at you. Um, but whether it's antiquated or not, what I can say is that the financial institutions and systems in Japan still to this day in 2024 are set up to use these booklets, the tsuchos. When you apply for a loan, when you go to a credit union, when you try to get investors, the easiest way to show them your financial history is by showing them these little booklets. And it's what they're expecting. And so even if a bank offers you like a digital tsucho, a digital booklet, I'm not sure I would take it. I think it's really your best option is going to be to have that little booklet in your hand, and whenever you need to update it, you just stop by the ATM and it'll print it on there for you. I would really suggest that as the path of least resistance when running your business in Japan. I don't know. Do you use the Tsucho, Tyson, or
Uh,
do you use the digital one?
I I remember for one coin English we used the Sucho.
Yeah, yeah. Because so for Reiwa Pharmaceuticals, as I mentioned, our main checking account is SBI Net Bank, and they don't have any type of booklet. It's all digital. And actually, they are really good because you can go on their website and do any period of time, and within seconds, you can have the whole history printed out. But I think they're quite unique in that respect. Whereas if you're dealing with the mega banks, it's more of a headache than anything to try to get that. So, yeah, I would usually say the Tsucho if it's the mega banks.
And I think sometimes too, like they tend to do more maintenance than you would expect the mega bank would do for a online
Yeah,
platform,
yeah,
at least with the apps. I think with the Sucho, at least they're not gonna shut down, let's say, wire transfer
yeah.
for the, let's say, the in-persons.
Sure. Yeah. Also, I mean, Rakuten Bank seems to be doing maintenance every 2 weeks or something. It's quite wild, actually. Okay.
Cool. So I think for we're going to talk about mega banks. I think
Yeah.
you already covered SMBC and
Yeah.
MUFG.
So I think the next part, the next topic of the article is really breaking down the individual banks, and I think let's not spend too much time on this, but just go over it quick. So when it's the mega banks, your first choice is going to be SMBC, and they have a history of supporting small businesses. They've got branches everywhere. Go to SMBC first. If anything goes wrong with SMBC, then Mitsubishi is your second choice. They've got branches everywhere. The only key point here is that other than SMBC, the other mega banks all require a business manager visa. So if you're trying to start your company before getting the business manager visa, really SMBC is going to be your only choice. So go there. All right. And so then after Mitsubishi, the next the next best mega bank is Rizona Bank. All right. And I've heard good opinion. I've never used them myself, but I've been in touch with them. Many of my entrepreneur friends here in Tokyo are using Rizona. With I've only heard good things, and that they're quite well suited for small businesses. Uh, and then basically after, do whatever you can to get one of those three banks, because the next options it falls off quick. The fourth one is Mizuho Bank, which is one of the biggest in Japan, but Mizuho is super traditional. I've used them for personal banking for many years, and it's they've got fees for everything. If you have a bank account, I believe you any type of business bank account must pay a minimum 3,000 yen per month to use their services. So no matter what you're doing, there's a fee associated. Their managers are usually trying to convince you not to open a bank account. So I would Mizuho is really your last choice. Only if you get rejected by the other banks. So yeah, and then the last mega bank is Japan Post. I mean, really stay away from Japan Post, right? This is really asking for trouble. This is the most traditional, still using collated paper in the offices to track transactions. Almost no online banking options. I think you're really just asking for a headache in even opening a Japan Post Bank account. So, really, I mean, the only reason you should ever go there is if every single other option has been exhausted. So, really, just don't even go.
Yeah, just go there for your personal bank account if you're a student or live in the countryside.
Honestly, I would say don't even do that. Really, if you're go to SBI Net Bank before you even go there. Yes, honestly, don't even do it. Yeah, use a net bank, or just don't even have a mega bank account if if that's your only choice. So yeah, so that's the mega banks, right? I do think that the top three are pretty good, and then it falls off quick from there. Next major category is the local banks, and this list that I've put together is pretty specific for Shibuya and Tokyo itself. So I think it's not going to be that helpful for entrepreneurs all over Japan. So I won't really go into each bank specifically, but the real key points here are Shinsei Bank is really, or now it's called SBI Shinsei Bank, is probably your best option here. And if you need English banking, that's the place to go. Any of the other banks are usually going to require permanent residence, which is not going to be an option for most entrepreneurs. And so I would say, unless you have a very specific reason for dealing with a local bank, stick with the fast track guide. Get a net bank and a mega bank and call it a day. That's really all there is to say about the local banks. Yeah,
For
because
Shin,
I've been into many. When I was first applying, I went to all of them, and it was just rejection one after another. Don't waste your time.
you mentioned in the article for Shinsei that
Yeah,
I think you called them and they said they're not opening any corporate accounts at this time. But have you heard
yeah.
anything different to that? Or do you know
I
anyone who has been able to?
Yeah, I have heard different, and so this was written before the transition to SBI
I gotcha.
Shinsei, and what I've heard is that since the merger with SBI Shinsei Bank is that they are actively running a banking or business banking business. So yeah, the as I say, what you do is you make an appointment on their website with a manager at the branch closest to your business. Go in and give it a shot. See if they'll open an account for you. But
Cool.
insist on filling the application. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, one other interesting point to mention about the local banks for 2024 is actually Tokyo Star Bank, which I gave a very low rating on the initial rankings. They've actually done something very interesting this last year. So Tokyo Star Bank was acquired, at least in part, by a large Taiwanese bank. And I'm not even sure which one, but there was a large Taiwanese bank which acquired them, and Tokyo Star Bank started a program which I believe is the first of its type in Japan, to open accounts for non-residents of Japan. And specifically in this case, you must be a customer of that bank in Taiwan and a citizen of Taiwan. So it's not anything that's going to, it only applies to a small handful of people. But it is really interesting that they've opened up the ability for non-residents to open bank accounts. And I believe it's the first time that's ever been done in Japan. So I think Tokyo Star Bank is kind of on the right direction. And in the update to this article, they'll be a bit higher, but it's really interesting. So they've proved it is possible to open accounts for non-residents if they want to do it.
Awesome. Cool. And I have some Taiwanese clients doing market entry, so it's good
No,
to
and
know.
it's really interesting. So if anyone is listening and they are specifically a resident of Taiwan trying to open a business in Japan, if that is you, then Tokyo Star Bank would actually be your best option, but only in that very specific case.
And plus, it's a pretty decently well-known bank too, so
Yeah. So
it's I'd say worth
yeah,
trying if you're Taiwan.
generally you want to stay away from it because you must have permanent residence for your business. They have very bad online banking. There's really nothing good to say about them other than if you're specifically a Taiwanese citizen, you have an interesting setup there. So
And you can't
okay.
get a Megabank account.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you follow the fast track method, it didn't work. And
Yeah. So that's a special point for Taiwanese residents. But okay, so that's about all there is to say on local banks, for the most part, to be avoided.
One of the common challenges I see with my consulting clients is not having any staff internally who can drive marketing strategy and execution to the next level. This really limits the growth trajectory of a company, especially for a leader like you that wants to go from 30 million to 500 million yen a year and does not have the time to spend years learning through trial and error. To solve this problem, I'm launching a marketing agency that can help companies like yours to increase leads and closing rates through SEO, Google Maps, content marketing, and websites that convert. Head over to scalingyourcompany.com and book a free consultation. Let's talk about what your business needs are, where your current strategy is letting you down, and how we can help you see real results with the methods I've successfully implemented at multiple companies myself. Now, back to the episode.
Okay, so the next major category is the online banks, the net banks. And these are what you want. They're the most competitive. I mean, no bank will make you feel like they actually want you to open an account there like the online banks. And they're also the best option for someone without a business manager visa. They're known for opening business accounts for people on an employment visa who've incorporated a business. So they're really the first option for any new entrepreneurs. And yeah, so let's get right into them. I mean, as I said before, the first option is SBI NetBank. I mean, they've got the lowest fees in the industry. They give you a debit card right off the bat. Their customer service is phenomenal. They're very quick, very flexible, have separate smartphone apps for your personal and business accounts so you can keep them both running easily. I mean, really, I cannot say enough. You need an SBI NetBank account for your company. So they're the first option. And then, the big news for 2024 is the rise of PayPay Bank, right? So this PayPay Bank, really only got into the business banking space about 2 years ago, but they've quickly become, I would say on my list, the second option. So if anything goes wrong with SBI NetBank, your next choice is PayPay Bank. The application is quick. You get a debit card right away, and it's really a good online banking, simple system. That's your second choice. Then if anything happens, you shouldn't have a problem with those two. But if you do, next one is GMO Aozora NetBank. They're also very friendly for small businesses. They're sending out advertisements for their small business loans all the time. They're almost as good as the other two net bank options, so they're an easy third choice. GMO Aozora NetBank. Even I know a lot of entrepreneurs here in Tokyo who are using them as their main net bank. I've never heard something bad about them. So
And I think they have packages too. If you use, they do offer a virtual office,
oh,
and
cool.
GMO is also they're the king of internet servers in Japan.
Nice.
So if you're
Yeah,
gonna get a server
so
in Japan, probably
yeah,
gonna
and
use one of their 3 brands.
that would be cool. I didn't know they offer virtual offices. Yeah, if you're a non-citizen entrepreneur using business manager visa, you do have to have a physical office. So that's not really an option for you, but if you're a permanent resident or citizen, yeah, maybe GMO Aozora is a great option if they're offering virtual office. And so, yeah, then the last entry in the net bank space is Rakuten Bank. And let's say 15 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when, but somewhere around then, Rakuten was the pioneer of net banks in Japan. They were really the first ones to get it going. They had all the new technology. It was an awesome offering. They had credit cards, but somewhere along the way, Rakuten Bank lost its way. They went off the main path. The bureaucracy got to them. The giant corporation slowed down their gears, and unfortunately, on at this time, Rakuten Bank is really an organization to be avoided. They've got terrible fees, very terrible service. They require fax and a landline phone number to even open an account. Yeah, it's really whatever you can do to avoid Rakuten Bank, steer clear. Um, on the other hand, any company that wants to open a Rakuten shop, which is Japan's largest e-commerce market. So a lot of companies want to do that, including mine. And any company that wants to sell on there must have a Rakuten Bank account. So,
Ooh.
and it's 100% required. And so, and yeah, maybe you can use an agent to do your Rakuten shop or something like that. But that's a whole nother discussion. If you want a Rakuten shop, you must have a Rakuten Bank account, at least for the payments for the shop. So unfortunately, you may be filling out an application for a Rakuten account, and my company does have one. We've basically we don't use it for anything except for the required payments of Rakuten, and I would suggest you use it as little as possible. But if you're planning to sell on Rakuten in any way, you are going to have to open a Rakuten Bank account. So yeah, get ready. And they're pretty tough. They even required that we present a signed contract with one of our manufacturing partners to prove that we were a legitimate business. So yeah, these guys are pretty tough.
Gotcha. That's good to know.
Yeah, and it
'Cause,
had to be submitted through fax.
and I think it's good that you provide this information because I think a lot of Japan veterans like myself, what I remember as Rakuten Bank is like the 10 years ago.
Yeah, and then it was
15,
cool,
and
right?
it was cool
Yeah.
back then, but
Yeah,
it's
they
good to
they were
have an
the
update.
and I think they were really the first consumer card. The Rakuten card was really like the first easily obtainable credit card in Japan for young people, and it was a phenomenon. And maybe the personal banking is still worth your time, but the business banking definitely is not, unfortunately. Awesome. So that's about all there is to say about net banks. I mean, it's really simple. Get a net bank for your company. You're gonna love it.
And okay. And I was gonna ask one question
Please. Yeah, yeah.
regarding the banks. So what is the deal with maybe like the business plan and like sometimes needing a website?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. So, in terms of the application, yeah, so any application that I've seen will definitely ask for your company website, especially the net banks. And so that's really their only way to check your company's presence. And so Yeah, I would suggest anyone applying for a company for a business bank account to have your company website established. It doesn't have to be super beautiful, but it must you must have a company website. And what those banks are looking for is specifically the company information page that every Japanese business has on their website. It's really a cultural thing for Japanese business culture. Every business needs to have a dedicated page for the kaisha gayo, the business information. And there's maybe like I don't, 8 to 10 business points on there, like company name, company address, um, registered capital, the banks you do business with, number of employees, stuff like that. You can go to any Japanese company's website to find an example, but that's what they're looking for. And so you definitely should have a website with that simple page up and ready before you fill out these applications.
Cool. And if so I think what both said is correct. It doesn't have to be, you could probably do it yourself. Do you know if
Yeah,
they could do
simple
it in
website.
English?
I would not suggest that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. I think make sure that you have a very simple Japanese website for your Japanese company.
Gotcha. So for listeners, my marketing agency does provide a super simple landing page.
Yeah, just
If
and
you
one
need something,
landing page is enough. Maybe one landing page and one company page. That's all it has to be. But yeah, recently I was helping a company apply for a PayPay bank account, and the PayPay application specifically said that if you don't have a company website that they can check, then there's some additional information that you have to provide about the company, such as like a contract or like a utility bill from your office. So really just get a simple company website with the information easily accessible, and you're going to avoid a lot of trouble.
and how about the business plan?
Yeah. When it's an online bank, when it's a net bank, I've never heard of them asking for the business plan. I don't they just don't care. They don't want to see it. Uh, you have to list the area of your company in the application, and you need to make sure it's the same area of business that's listed on your company registration, because that's what you have to submit. But other than that, I wouldn't expect them to ask for a business plan. Where business plans are important is with the mega banks and the
Okay, let
credit
me
unions.
I'll edit this part. Editor, please edit out Bo's answer my question. It's I'll explain. And
Yeah, no
I'll
problem.
So for the business plans, yeah, for the online banks like SBI, yeah, my original impression was actually didn't need to create a business plan, but we just
Yeah.
helped one company incorporate, and
Yeah.
actually they needed a business plan from
Oh,
SBI.
really? Well, there
So
you
I
go.
think so I think that's kind of a recent change for the listener. So you
Yeah,
might read online
sure.
about that, but
And that could be within the first 6 months of incorporation. Sometimes they have additional requirements if your company's within the first 6 months. So, yeah, it depends. It's unfortunately it's a case by case basis. But yeah, at least when you go to the credit unions and the mega banks, I think bringing a Japanese language business plan with you is a huge help.
cool. And yeah, so I think I'll let you go into credit unions.
Yeah, sure. So, all right. So we've talked about the mega banks, the local banks, and the online banks, and those are really your main banking options. The next category is credit unions. Okay. And in terms of banking flexibility and use, these are not going to be a good option, right? You really can only use their ATMs at their branches. You're never going to be able to pull out cash conveniently. They don't have any online banking. I mean, literally none. So you can't even make transfers unless you go to the credit union. So if you're looking for banking, this is not it. But what credit unions are good at is giving small business loans. And this is really the point of even talking to a credit union. And you can apply with them directly, or most of the government backed loans and grants are managed through credit unions. So even when you go to the Tokyo government or the Shibuya government and apply for a government backed loan, you're still going to have to use a credit union to manage that loan, even if it's approved. So if you're interested in business loans, credit unions are going to be the easiest way to get it. So that's what you're looking at. And I'll say my company has received a government-backed loan here in Tokyo, and we did it through Sawayaka Credit Union. Though I've met with many credit unions, uh, but I really would, these credit unions, they're very geographic specific. So none of the credit unions I mentioned now are going to apply, to anyone outside of Tokyo or even this area, because they usually have, somewhere from 10 to 50 locations total. So they're fairly small organizations, depending. Um, but they really are excited to help small businesses and your best way to get a loan. So if you're going for a business loan, this is the place to go. I would my suggestion on how to weed them out or select them for your geographic area is to first just well, if you're looking for a government backed loan, you go to the government office, such as the Shibuya City Hall, and they will have a list there of which credit unions they actually can work with. So you get that list and you just go through them one by one and see which ones correspond with your company's geographic area. And you may have to call the credit union and ask about their geographic area. But using that method, in about an hour, you should be able to get a list of a few credit unions that can both provide a loan through the government and are in your geographic area. And then your next step is just to go visit them one by one and ask to apply for a loan. So, and it works a bit different with credit unions compared to banks, in that as a business, you cannot really go in there and ask to open an account. They only open accounts for businesses which have an open credit line with them. So the way it works is, instead of applying for an account, you would go in there to apply for a loan, and then if the loan is approved, you would have an account opened for you. This is really how it works.
Gotcha. And do you, as a service, provide advisory for maybe companies who want to maybe need help with the business plan for
Yeah,
getting these loans?
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when you go into the credit union or the government office, you definitely need to have a fully fledged out Japanese business plan. And that's going to be about 20 pages for a standard one. There's even the Tokyo government even has a standardized format that you can use. It's available on the um, Tokyo Startup Station website, which is an office downtown supporting startups, and you can get that business plan and write it out yourself. If you need to see one, I'm more than happy to share our company's business plan with anyone that would like an example. But you definitely need to have that printed out and give that to whichever manager you're meeting with at the credit union.
Gotcha.
And
And
so, yeah, I
do you
do offer
create
services to
for
help that. Yeah. So yeah,
cool.
if somebody needs a Japanese business plan, I can help you make that. It does usually require a bit of local market research. So they're usually looking to see at least one section, including a consumer survey of Japanese consumers. So yeah, that's the tough part of making it, which can cost a bit, but as long as you have that data, it's pretty easy to pull together.
That's let's say, I mean, there are some listeners who can or would actually prefer someone to do it for them. So
No, absolutely, and yeah, so I have prepared those business plans for a number of people, and the way it's possible to get that business plan approved by the Tokyo government, so you can actually use it to apply for grants, and that's done through the Tokyo Startup Station, and I've also helped some people go through that process. So yeah, in terms of which credit unions to work with, yeah, the key limiting factor here is that most credit unions only work with people with permanent residence. Really, so that's going to be 90% of credit unions around Japan, and so you really do have to. The first question you should be asking them is well, first question is, are you in my geographic area? Second question is, can you accept an application from someone with a business manager visa, right? And if you don't have business manager visa, forget it. Because in fact, whenever you get a government loan or a loan like this, you're going to have to use a guarantee company, a guarantor company, which is pretty standardized. There's a giant one here in Tokyo called Tokyo Guarantee, I believe. And all of those guarantee companies have specific rules that anyone applying for a loan, a business loan, must have a business manager visa. So when it comes to loans, at minimum, you must have a business manager visa. But in that case, only about 10% of credit unions will even work with you. And other than that, you must have a permanent residence. So yeah, you need to find which ones. And the only credit union I could find in Tokyo that would work with a business manager visa was Sawayaka Credit Union.
thank you very much for sharing. And yeah, this episode is probably one of the longest episodes we've had for the Scaling Japan podcast.
Awesome. Well,
So
we're almost done.
yeah. So just
So
finish off the marathon.
yeah, I think so as I mentioned before, credit associations, when you apply for loans, the government might mention you can use the credit association. Don't even go there. You don't want to be a part of that. They won't accept you. Just forget credit associations and go to a credit union. And then to wrap up the financial services, so you've got your bank, you've done the fast track. A few other services to mention. I mean, let's go over them. American Express for your credit card. That's going to be your best option. Wise for international transfers. Just get Wise as quick as possible. If you want to do any type of investing in the Japanese market, and we're talking about corporate investing here, SBI investment, SBI Shoken is going to be the easiest option. And especially if you have an SBI net bank account, then you can get into that. And the last service here, the JFC, which is talking about business loans. The JFC was actually it's a bank that was established by the Japanese government specifically to provide low interest loans to startup companies, and that's all they do really. They've got a branch in almost every major city in all of Japan. Literally, I think it's like 1,000 locations, and they just provide small business loans up to 30 million yen, I believe, is the max. And so, if you're starting a business in Japan, your other main option for a loan, other than government backed and credit unions, is the JFC. And I would really suggest going there. They don't require any type of personal backing. You have to have a good business plan, show that this business is going to succeed. It's not a free for all. My company has been rejected twice, but I've heard of lots of small businesses and non-Japanese entrepreneurs getting small business loans there. And so that's really your best option for a small business loan.
Have,
Get to the JFC.
have you heard of anyone who was pre-revenue get it?
No, and I can say my company was rejected twice, being not being pre revenue.
Gotcha.
So I have not heard of that. And also something to mention is that last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, the JFC enacted an online application system, and it's actually pretty good. For surprisingly for a government-run bank, they've actually got a pretty good online application system. You can submit all the documents, do the full application online, and then they will call you a couple days later to set up a meeting. So yeah, that's really your best option to get a small business loan.
Cool. And any yeah, so this actually has been a marathon.
And
And
I just hope that, yeah, anyone who's struggling getting their bank accounts open, who's been rejected time and time again, listen, if I could do it, you can do it too. Just follow the guide, answer the questions that they want to know as simply as possible. Don't make yourself stand out. I know you can do it, and you'll have an easy corporate banking uh, situation with your company. And if anything goes wrong, you're always welcome to reach out to me personally.
how long did it take? Like, when you're trying to get a bank account, like, actually, I don't think how long did it take? And
Yeah,
how
sure.
many hours? I
Yeah,
think, I
no,
think people need to understand,
all this, yeah,
you
no,
need to be acknowledged for this, I'll say sacrifice.
yeah, and I'm not the only one.
God.
I've had people call me and say, I've gone to 10 banks, I've been rejected. It's ridiculous. They're demanding these documents, and yeah, it's terrible. In my case, so I founded the company, and before I could get the business manager visa, we had to have a certain amount of investment, which required a bank account. And so it was such a catch 22. I couldn't get the proper visa until we had the bank, and we couldn't get the bank until we had the visa. So, there was no guides out there. So I got this list from the local government and just started going bank to every credit union. And it was seriously like at least 2 months of doing this until we got our bank accounts figured out, right? And it was ridiculous, like rejection here, maybe here, and yeah, a lot of the truth is, if you go into a bank, the average worker has no idea about non-citizens visas and policies and that stuff. Even a lot of managers don't know about that, because the non-citizen business is such a small percentage of what they do. So yeah, you are fighting a losing battle in some ways, and you almost have to know more than the bank itself. Um, but yeah, it took me about 2 months of just dinking around, going to every bank and getting rejected, calling them, just finding the answers. And yeah, and I think that's why I just feel so passionate to talk about this. And I feel a duty to share as much as possible with entrepreneurs who want to make their business in Japan come true. It shouldn't be that hard, but unfortunately, it is a pretty restrictive system. But guys, just follow the fast track, and you can do it too.
Excellent advice. And yeah, companies shouldn't be wasting their time creating a bank account. It should be focused
Mhm.
on, let's say, delivering delight to customers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a good, it's not helping startups grow in Japan. That's for sure.
Cool. Thank you very much, Beau. And
Hey, it's been a pleasure, Tyson. Yeah,
and
thank you for the opportunity to use your platform to share this information. I really hope this is 1 hour that someone can listen to, and this is business banking in Japan once and for all.
it pretty much is the one, and what's it, the one on VR or something like that.
Yeah.
And also for the listeners, we did another interview with Beau about a year ago, maybe even like a year and a half ago,
I
about
think it
doing
was a
sales
year
in
and a
Japan.
half. Yeah.
And I think it's been viewed by over 500 people. And I highly recommend it because Beau has the unique experience of being working for a pretty much all Japanese company, or maybe all Japanese mid-sized company, and being
Yeah.
the
Very
only
traditional
foreigner,
Japanese machinery company.
and as a salesperson,
Yeah.
let alone selling to Japanese clients. So you can't go deeper in Japan than that.
It was pretty
Thanks so
cool.
much,
Yeah.
Beau.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tyson.